As pressure mounts ahead of next year's general election, some political parties are experiencing cracks in their structures. Now, with just about 13 days to the official start of the presidential campaign, if matters stay unresolved, the chances of victory, especially at the presidential polls, is under threat. The tussle between the faction loyal to the party's presidential candidate, that's the African Democratic Congress, the tussle between the faction loyal to the party's presidential candidates, that's Dumebi Kachikwu, and that of the party's chairman, Chief Ralph Nwosu, is now threatening the unity of the ADC. After an announcement was made by the deputy national chairman of the party, Bamidele Ajadi, to suspend the party's presidential candidate, Mr. Kachikwu, over alleged gross misconduct. Mr. Kachikwu has come out to refute these allegations and the announcement of his suspension. And that's the crux of our next discussion. Now we have with us in the studio to discuss these issues and how it's been resolved, the spokesperson of the Dumebi Kachikwu campaign organization of the African Democratic Congress, that is Mr. Adeni Ikuru. Thank you so much for joining us on TVC Breakfast. Good to see you again, by the way.
Thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. But going by reports, in fact, one particular one sticks out, saying that with the way things are at the moment in the ADC, the chances of the party even participating in the polls is very slim.
Well, I want the world watching at the moment to understand that if INEC gives any individual participating in an election they claim bill of health, they just need to take the best of mattresses and go to sleep until the contest begins effectively. Let's understand that rancor is part of the evolutionary process of any family. Our domestic homes most definitely have such levels of disagreements at some point or the other. But what do? Mediations are ensured to guarantee peace. Whatever is happening that has led to this point is the fact that my principal, Dumebi Kachikwu, believes that one needs to toe the line of the law. He won the primaries that held in June of this year, that's at Abeokuta in Ogun State, with over 900 votes. The delegates give him their mandate 1,001 times over, if I want to be hyperbole. And we had INEC, members of SARS who had the responsibility to observe the primary, and after that, every due process was followed. And of course, INEC admitted his name as the official presidential candidate, as it were, of the ADC. The rancor as a part in the party is something that we believe every other party that appears to be having issues should actually, stay conscious of. If there is a stipulation in a party constitution that you are only entitled to 4 years a term, 2 years, 2 terms of 8 years, and after you're done, then another person actually comes to the saddle. But a situation where a party chairperson has been there for 17 years and his tenure ended effectively August 28th of last year, of last month I meant to say, then one would have expected him to have organized a national convention according to the stipulations of Article 24 of our party constitution, so that it can actually guarantee room for somebody who comes to office having actually been done with his own tenure. So the issue raised is not personal. The issue raised is not about maybe somebody pushing the other because you don't want them to get to the limelight. It's about the provisions of the Constitution that if you've done such terms, you have to move. But if you've read, and I know most of you have actually consumed lots of things in public domain, I expected better from Mr. Ajadi, that actually has that suspension credited to him, because even as a political party, you have your administration steered by a bigger body called INEC. So if they knew better, they would have understood that you cannot suspend a party without resorting to INEC, and you must give reasons why that should not stand.
Cannot suspend the presidential
most definitely
candidate.
The presidential candidate. There is no other person who emerged from the party primaries in June. The people who suspend him or who suspended him were, SY National Working Committee members of the party. So they know better. than to issue a suspension without resorting to INEC with valid reasons for the suspension. If at all the primaries were skewed, they should state it. If at all there are certain things he has not fulfilled before he was guaranteed that position, if at all the form he purchased was not actually paid for, you should state your case before INEC, before these actually resulted in, somebody guaranteeing the position and now you're talking about suspension. So this is it. In every political sphere, the substantive office holders have the responsibility to organize an election within the period where their tenure still subsists so that they can be a part of that electoral process and then participate in the election, being that it is their right to also vote and be voted for. But if Nwosu, according to his story, is that there was room for tenure extension because he just did a term,
Yes.
then I would have expected him to organize 2 months, maybe after our primaries in Abeokuta, another convention where our constitution recognizes as the only platform upon which any election could be held for people to actually take office or leave office.
So ratify it, you mean?
So most definitely, more or less like President Muhammadu Buhari wanting to organize an election less than 3 days before he leaves office. This election cycle that will take place in 2023 has been on for over 1.5 years because the president also must exercise his right to vote before he leaves office May 29 of 2023. So if Mr. Nwosu keeps telling the world that he is due for another term, then people should ask him, knowing full well that your tenure would expire August the 28th, why did you not organize a national convention
before that
time, please?
Right. Now, let's come back to your principle. The National Working Committee pointed out that since the 9th of June this year, when he was elected, that he failed and neglected and refused to share with the party any meaningful, constructive, or reasonable presidential campaign roadmap for the forthcoming presidential
I appreciate you for this question. I was part of a meeting that we held with my principal the first week of August, just this last month in Abuja, and we had conversations regarding the roadmap to these elections. And my boss told them that, all right, let's have what you've provided. These are the plans. In fact, my boss even told them, and they are aware of this, that there had been visitation to Sokoto. The National Working Committee members that put the statement out were part of the visit to Sokoto. There had been some visits made that Chief Ralph Nwosu was part of. Late July, there were certain things done that the people complaining were part of. And for every meeting held, this particular group of people complaining were always part of it. There was a strategy meeting held in Abuja for about a week, the second week of August of this same 2022. I was part of that meeting. We had conversations. We created roadmaps. So if I, speaking for my principal, happens to be part of the strategy meeting, and in that particular meeting, I gave roadmaps regarding what we'll do on behalf of my principal, which is part of the roadmap that they are saying they are not aware of, then I'm in wonderment right here in your studio because I've been part of that process. So I think it is the fact that they don't quite understand that when you are delegated to take up a task for your boss, you are acting in that same capacity for the man who sends you there. My boss has day-to-day executive summaries of what transpired at the retreat that we held, that I was part of, and I had correspondence from him regarding what should be done. So it is really, really not a shock to me, but rather disingenuous that they have to come forward to say that there's no communication from that period.
And all the sides were represented.
I can tell you the former national chairman of the party was there.
Who is the former chairman?
Chief Ralph Nwosu, his tenure had ended August the 28th of the party. That is according to the Constitution. And let us also say this, a week before the end of his tenure, he actually called an emergency meeting. Article 23A and B of the ADC Constitution as amended, the 2018, has it that if you convoke an emergency meeting, it should be within a week, not within 24 hours. And that's actually the foundation of this reaction, where people said you cannot call people to the national secretariat of the party in Abuja and you actually seek tenure elongation. Article 24 of the Constitution, Articles 2 and 17 of the Constitution of the ADC, these portions have it stipulated that it is only at a national convention. And of course, you will do that also with people that have that legitimacy to participate in an election process, which I also see very obviously that it's been contravened by those who organized the charade of a meeting where an extension was given to him by people essentially that do not belong to the party. So I think that people should know that the conversation here this morning is about following the rule of law to the letter, because that is very pivotal to the success of any party that intends to take over the mantle of leadership in this country come 2023. If your home is in disarray, or you allow illegality, or you see the Constitution and violate it, then you're going to put pay to your ambition. So this has been done by my boss to request very candidly the resignation appropriately of people whose tenure had long expired, so that we can have a fresh of breath air. If at all he says, okay, it's going to be an elongated session, let it go through the party process and see if it gets approval by those who are substantive office holders. And let me say this, the Forum of Chairmen, because the tenure of the national chairman had expired, and now the legal body as having the powers to steer the party administration up until we have another national convention that would allow for election to take place. These are issues that nobody in the media should have even heard. They are issues that you should have had proper conversations with my boss about, because there were talks that had happened before now. But the insistence of my boss that we need to show leadership by example, this is what we see everywhere in public domain right now.
So it didn't emanate from your side?
No, quite frankly, what my boss made statements about, that, let's say this, he's been having a conversation with the former national chairman, Chief Ralph Nwosu, about the need to allow the legitimate body of the party steer us into another phase.
Before he was said to have gone on
yes,
to make
from Chief Ralph, yes, please, and from Chief Ralph Nwosu, there had been entreaties by him that my boss should, support tenure elongation, and he told him that if I did this, it would not be an example well set for other persons that should really also fill spaces according to party constitution. And I do not want that to affect that which I am supposed to do for the party. And if you also look at it, they're talking about not sharing a plan. The election timetable is more or less like a year calendar, because if we looked at when the party held its primaries in June of this year, we have July, August, September, October, November, December, January, and February. So you have an 8-month period. If you're talking about the fact that my boss isn't sharing plans with you, your tenure will expire since we held the primaries in Abeokuta 2 months after. It's supposed to work with those who are now the substantive office holders over a long period, because it is not going to be possible to work with those that are no longer holding positions in the party. So I think people should understand this clarity being put forward and not begin to see it as something done to actually malign anybody or prevent their political aspirations. Not at all. It's the law which has to be followed.
Now, there were issues raised in the video your principal made.
Yes, please.
That video, according to the person of Ajadi, he has described it as crass irresponsibility and not suitable for someone of his person, talking about Dumebi Kachikwu.
Yeah,
and I'm wondering why he had to go to that extent to make certain claims. He talked about being asked to spend some monies, and I want you to really talk to us what it is that he was asked to perhaps bring to the table. He was asked to bring about 2 billion before he could be the presidential candidate, and some other things were raised. I want you to clear the air on some of the things he mentioned in that video.
One of the things that I must say clearly here, that His Excellency Dumebi Kachikwu is a most circumspect person. He's not a man of too many words, but is a man when he speaks, he has reason to speak. He's not careless with words. Now, if you already watched the video, there's a particular discourse statement he made called dubious distinction, which has to do with the party, particularly under the leadership of Chief Ralph Nwosu, of actually trading the mandate of the party. It must be recalled that the late Obadiah Melafia, who was the presidential candidate for the ADC at the 2019 polls, and on the eve of the presidential election, Chief Nwosu jumped ship according to very verified records and traded his mandate. So instead of everybody pulling their resources for Obadiah Melafia, according to what my boss found out, they shifted support because certain trading had gone forward. And do not also forget that before we eventually have the current running mate of my superior in the person of Ahmed Buhari from Niger State, there had been conversations about having somebody who will be his running mate, but there also was insistence by my boss that the person that I choose is this because I need to find somebody who can work with me. I need to also consider capacity, responsibility, loyalty. These are the needful ingredients of a running mate to a presidential candidate. And the suggestion made to him did not quite fit the bill that he believes should be what he has with him. And listen very carefully here, please. When he submitted the name of Ahmed Buhari, it was 2 hours before the end of INEC's collection of names for running mates, and he called them whilst they were there that, please, have you submitted the name of my running mate? And they were dilly-dallying, and he told them, if you do not have his name on that paper that shows as my running mate, then we'll go to court for that. Let's get this straight. Party leadership cannot superintend the decision of a running mate who has validly, as an independent person, gone through the legitimate process of obtaining your form and becoming, through the primaries, your presidential candidate. People must understand. Let me talk about maybe Atiku Abubakar, for instance. Don't forget, the reason the party is having problems is because he decided the person that he wants to work with. If you check the APC as well, His Excellency Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu decided to work with Shetima for obvious reasons. The world keeps questioning the decision of these persons. But the person who is an individual running in an election believes there are qualities I'm looking for. And that is the crux of the matter. He decided that I want to work with this person. That's one part of the conversation. Because he threatened he was going to go to court, they eventually let Ahmed Buhari be on the ballot. Another thing, before they mentioned that the campaign council chairperson was Abdulaziz Sulaiman, he had a conversation with Chief Ralph Nwosu before he took a flight. That's prior the strategic retreat we had preparatory to the campaign season. And he told him, I'm going to Dubai. Could you allow me to return so we can smoothen that out? Sooner had he got on the plane than Chief Ralph Nwosu announced to him that that is the person who is going to be the DG of your campaign. And he told him, you could not have done that. We had a conversation. I knew when he left. Chief Ralph Nwosu knew when he left. They had a conversation before he left. As a matter of fact, this was days after the meeting where I was part of with him regarding what should be done even before he traveled. That's contravention number 2. And I think that it is because my boss has refused to actually be a stooge in an election where he's supposed to be the leading light that is contributory to these problems. And I think that people should understand that his insistence on doing what is right appears to be rocking the stable, which should not have been in the first instance.
So there is a lot of back and forth, and there's obviously history, long history.
Obviously, it's important for the world to know.
Right.
So these are connected to the 2 billion you talked about. How could you request 2 billion from somebody that INEC has cleared, that got the form legitimately and paid for it legitimately, and he has been supporting the party cause? Because when you come into a party, you bring value in cash and kind, which he has been doing since June, that Chief Ralph Nwosu, if he sat here with me, cannot deny. So that is really what I'm saying here. The fracas is needless here. Everybody should endeavor to toe the line of the law. And I think that it is healthy for our fledgling democracy, really, to actually accommodate towing the line of the law, because that is what will give birth to the leadership that we eventually have.
Okay, so it was instructive that for me that you said, I asked you earlier on who the former national chairman was.
Yes, sir.
And you insisted
Chief
that
Ralph
it
Nwosu
is
is tenure ended August 28,
Ralph
2022,
Nwosu. Right.
last month.
So there is a caretaker committee said
Yeah,
to be headed by Naomi Akwashiki.
Yes, of course.
Right?
Yes.
But we understand, going by reports, that INEC has refused to recognize that office and has refused to endorse, so to speak, the sack of the National Working Committee headed by Chief Nwosu.
Okay, let me say this. When we talk about the sack of the National Working Committee, it is in recognition of the law that there are provisions from the rule books. And the rule books here says somebody should round off a tenure that the Constitution has already given an end to. Don't forget that for INEC, there are clarities always needed. The communication that emanated from the caretaker committee setup had been sent to INEC. And do not also forget that INEC should endeavor not to be being smart by half here, because INEC should tell the world how it allowed somebody occupy an office for 17 years instead of 8 years.
Absolutely.
Because many of us should also understand that at that tenure elongation they talked about, some INEC members of staff were called in. So you have to ask yourself, who are those people from INEC recognizing somebody that actually has been in an office that it should have been for 8 years, for 17 years, and INEC as a body has never deemed it fit to question such elongated stay. So we have to see that whatever it is that INEC holds, don't forget that at times when you make certain moves, INEC will say no, INEC will say we don't agree with that until we follow due process. This could actually result in certain levels of litigation, not really to make anybody the scapegoat, but to provide the fact that INEC also needs to know. Perhaps INEC is not aware up until this moment that when we amended the Constitution in 2018, there were certain provisions regarding the process and the standpoint of the caretaker committee according to law. So whilst INEC holds the ACSM space to decide what to accept, yes, we'll make further presentations to them so that we can also educate INEC about what had happened. Because don't forget, the last person that INEC had on their list happens to be the former national chairman, Chief Ralph Nwosu. So perhaps INEC needs further communication to know why he has to discontinue in that position so that the caretaker committee can steer the party into another election cycle that is needful. And also let us say this.
But before you say it, I don't even think INEC has that mandate to, would I use the word interfere now in internal mechanisms of the party. I think it should be left for the court to determine.
Don't forget that INEC has always been a party to many suits in this country. And that is why I'm careful to not accuse INEC wrongly at this moment, because INEC obviously operates on the information at its disposal. The national chairman understands better that he and Ajadi and many other cohorts cannot suspend my principal. And that's why the communication of INEC regarding that position has not touched the valid candidacy of His Excellency Dumebi Kachikwu. The caretaker committee happens to be the only concern at the moment, and perhaps recognizing who indeed can steer the party. So we will educate INEC in court, if need be, or do further correspondence to INEC.
I'm looking at the timing as we speak. The campaigns are almost here, and we are also talking about educating INEC. There's limited time to do all of that.
But we would have actually lost it if INEC has a problem with the candidacy of His Excellency Dumebi Kachikwu, which is pivotal. We also have
he's suspended, or he's said to be suspended.
It is miseducation in action and communication. Dumebi Kachikwu cannot be suspended.
So how soon do you and your principal intend to educate INEC?
No, don't forget, it's on, when we talk about educating INEC, it is through proper correspondence.
Right.
So
Has that begun?
It's on as I speak with you today. Right. It's on as I speak with you. So maybe tomorrow, maybe the day after, you could hear something from INEC. But the point is, we want to endeavor that we toe the line of law so that we present a party that has a clean bill of health with regard to the rule of law. And I say again, there is no problem with the candidacy of His Excellency Dumebi Kachikwu. And I want to use this opportunity to tell the world that whatever we do, steering party affairs, we must understand that the party belongs to the people and not somebody, even if you set it up.
Well, what are the chances of the party resolving this crisis? Because there are concerns that this fracas, as you mentioned, could consume the party.
Oh, no, that can't happen. Don't forget we have thousands of other persons that actually are vying for offices. If it consumes the party, then that simply means their chances are null and void. For everybody vying for elective office under the under the banner of the ADC, they don't have a problem, including His Excellency Dumebi Kachikwu that I speak for. So people talking about consuming the party perhaps understand things from the outside. I am a core insider. And the clarity that I've attempted to provide here is to ensure that those who really are party stakeholders can actually relax. Excuse me, I said something at the beginning of this conversation. Every family has certain challenges.
Which is natural.
Which is natural, yes,
but another line of argument, building up on Veronica's question would be, obviously, there didn't appear to be any, room for reconciliation within the family. So why didn't they hit the court? Why didn't Mr. Kachikwu go to court instead? He's even been challenged now that instead of going on social media, quote and unquote, now to make this assertions, they should have just gone to the court to get, soon enough, to get a verdict on the matter.
Don't forget that in law we say you can't put something on nothing. Mr. Dumebi Kachikwu did not put any video out until they held that particular meeting that extended the tenure of the national.
But he had been putting it to Chief Nwosu that
the communication,
operating on illegalities.
They've been having repeated correspondences regarding that.
So you should have just gone to court.
No, the truth is, he believed very well that we should talk about this, and do not forget that if Dumebi Kachikwu saw that somebody went to the media to actually present certain things, I think the first point you should counter that position so that both of you can bring all of what you've done to the law courts where you could be appropriately guided or certain verdicts put in certain people's favor having to the line of the law. So it is balancing the scales of countering information that is not proper. And that was why His Excellency had to go the way he did. But don't forget also that he said in the last video put out that there is nothing personal here. That is mooting.
No, I even understand. Yeah. I take those points. I take all of that. Him saying he's standing on, the rule of law, principle, and all that. But I wanted to clarify, what you said earlier in response to Veronica's question, that what are you doing now? You said things are in the work. You said educate INEC. Does this also include going to court? Or are you now talking about some correspondence with INEC directly? Correspondence
with INEC is first, because we believe that when you go to court on the eve of the campaign opening, that could actually cause needless distraction. So as we speak, the needed paperwork are filed for INEC to understand better the reason why there has been an emergence of a caretaker committee for the party at the moment. And once INEC receives that, there are internal mechanisms also for further correspondence amongst the factions that have disagreed, because people have described this as a crisis. There are internal mechanisms for these issues to be addressed. Let me say this. If a party chairman's tenure is said to have ended, that doesn't remove his membership of the party. And you cannot also take away his wealth of experience having participated in successive elections. So for him and the erstwhile working committee, one of the things that we must find out here is that we know that they have certain levels of experience that can only be useful for the party, but we may not leverage that if illegality is actually
continues. And that may be the point where we round up.
Quick question. Okay. 17 state chairman were, suspended for anti-party activities. I just wanted to get a word on what that is about.
Oh, those were the chairman that actually insisted that the former national chairman of the party takes the right step so that we can be exemplary in positivity and, you know, equity, fairness, and justice to others. And what they did was thought to be maybe being disrespectful to party laws. Is that the people that have changed the world are those who don't follow certain orders that everybody follow. The bandwagon effect doesn't create lasting change. So that is what we see. So thank you.
Right, and that's the note on which would end. We of course, there's still some other issues, but, you know, with all you've said, we say a big thank you.
I want to say thank you, too, for inviting me here to speak to this issue.
And wait to see what the coming days will bring regarding this burning matters.
Thank you very much.
Adeniyi Kunu there, the spokesperson, Dumebi Kachikwu Campaign Organization. Thank you.
Thank you, too. Thank you. I appreciate TVC. Thank you.